In this video, I want to share with you a tip to help you feel better now and help you feel better in the future. This video is all about using healthy oils, how to choose them, how to use them. We're finding out more and more that inflammation is a huge cause in chronic disease. Heart disease, diabetes, dementia, arthritis, all the things we associate with old age. And how this is relevant with oils is that some oils are very inflammatory in nature, some are fairly neutral, and some are strongly anti-inflammatory. Of all the oils around, few are more inflammatory than corn oil. And when you see vegetable oil in the store, that's usually corn oil, although sometimes there's some soy oil in it too. But soy oil is also inflammatory. Generally speaking, cheap, stable oils are going to be the most inflammatory ones. And the reason for that is omega-6 fats tend to store better, they tend to keep better. So those are the ones that tend to be cheapest because there are lower costs associated with keeping them and with producing them. And those are the ones that are most common in our diet, especially in processed foods. On the flip side of that, you have omega-3 fats, which are strongly anti-inflammatory. In a perfect world, we'd have about a 2-to-1 balance of omega-6 to omega-3 fats, and our inflammation would be relatively balanced. We do need inflammation sometimes. The problem now is instead of that 2-to-1 ratio, what most Americans have is somewhere between 15-to-1 and 40-to-1 of a ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 oils in their body. And the omega-6 fats are strongly pro-inflammatory, the omega-3 fats are strongly anti-inflammatory, so we live in a state of perpetual inflammation. And why are omega-3s less common? Why are they more expensive? Because they're much more difficult to store. Omega-3 fats break down in oxygen, they break down in heat, they break down in light. So because of all those things, they're very difficult to store, they're very difficult to use, especially in processed foods, which use some measure of heat in them. The other thing with omega-3s is they tend to have a stronger flavor to them, making them difficult to cook with. So as a result, let's take a look at what we get with a 15-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. The average American eats about 75 grams of fat a day. So that's about 70 grams of omega-6 for about 5 grams of omega-3. Now, I'm not knocking fish oil, krill oil, because they are very helpful. But what happens if you take a gram of fish oil or a gram of krill oil on top of that? Let's say you even go the extra mile and take 2 grams a day of those. Well, now instead of 70 versus 5, you're getting 70 versus 7. You're getting 70 grams of inflammatory oil versus 7 grams of not inflammatory oil. And where we really make headway is if we swap out some of these 70 grams of inflammatory oils for non-inflammatory oils. And if we can even get 10 grams a day swapped, well, now we're at 60 versus 15, and that's a world of difference. That's about a 4-to-1 ratio, and that's what we had more like in the 40s and 50s and 60s when we were much more healthy than we are now. It isn't always possible to get those omega-3 fats, and it isn't always possible to swap them, but we can still lower the inflammatory ones because there are a lot of oils that will tolerate high heat that aren't necessarily omega-3s, but are still either anti-inflammatory or at least neutral, and much better for you than the corn oil, than the vegetable oil. My favorite oils for high heat cooking are coconut oil, sesame oil, and avocado oil. All three tolerate heat well, and all three bring a different nutritional profile to the table. All three bring a different flavor to the table. Sesame and coconut have a particular taste to them, and you'll want to use those appropriately in your dishes. Whereas avocado has a very neutral flavor, and you can just sub it straight for corn oil or straight for vegetable oil and pretty much anything you want to cook. For medium heat cooking, I recommend olive oil and I recommend ghee. Ghee is essentially butter with the cream removed, so it can tolerate heat better than butter can, but I still wouldn't recommend it for those very high heat dishes. Olive oil and avocado oil are almost the same nutritionally speaking. Olive oil has a little bit more of a distinctive flavor and doesn't tolerate heat quite as well as avocado oil. A quick recommendation on olive oil too, I recommend getting it from a source here in the US where it's grown in the US if possible. There are issues with importing from Italy, which I don't want to get into because that would be a very long video, but the olive oil from here in the US is going to be more trustworthy. And for low heat applications, if you want to get experimental, two great choices are camelina oil and hemp oil. Any of the oils I mentioned before, with the possible exception of ghee and coconut oil, will work fine in low heat applications. The ghee and the coconut oil are solid at room temperature, so if it's going to be something that's served cold, you may not want to use those, but otherwise any of the oils I listed before will be fine. But the camelina oil and the hemp oil both have omega-3 fats in them. They're plant-based omega-3s, so the body has to do a little bit more work to get at them, and they're not as healthy for you as fish oils, but they're still much better than corn oil, than vegetable oil, than almost any other type of oil you could use. So make a list of a couple of those that sound good to you. Pick them up on your next shopping trip. Ditch the corn oil, ditch the vegetable oil, they're not doing you any good. If possible, add some fish to your diet. Farm-raised trout, wild-caught salmon, sardines, oysters, any of those things that give you omega-3s from a natural source are also going to help you with this a lot. If you like this video, click the like button. If you'd like to hear more of what I have to say, subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Enjoy.